evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Novi Community School District Board of Education. It is Thursday, November 21st. And without further ado, I would appreciate a roll call vote, Mr. Miller.
Trustee Cook.
Here.
Trustee Hood.
Here.
Trustee Menace here. Trustee Murphy.
Yes.
Trustee Roney.
Here.
Trustee Ruskin.
Here.
Trustee Smith.
Here.
All right, fantastic. Well, if you wouldn't mind rising and joining me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. We have first the approval of the agenda. I would entertain a motion for that, please. Thank you, Mrs. Hood.
I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Support.
It's been moved by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mr. Cook. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Motion carries 7-0. First item on our agenda is our student board member report. And I will turn to you, young man, and you can share with us what's going on at the middle school.
Hi, my name is Michelle, and I'm a 7th grader at Novi Middle School. I'm currently the Vice President of Student Council, and I'm so glad to be here to tell you all about our school's accomplishments. We successfully took 380 students and 32 chaperones to Washington, D.C. for 4 days and managed to bring them all back safely. Students saw museums, memorials, monuments, and even went on a ghost walk. This was the 13th year of the trip. 7th graders will be able to start registering for next year's trip by this Thanksgiving. Thanks to the NEF, Novi Youth Camp Assistance, and the middle school PTO, we will have more financial assistance available to families in need than ever for the 2020 trip. Also, with help from our PTO, we're starting a reading initiative program because we want to encourage reading. It's super easy. Whenever you finish a grade level book, not a book that is below your grade level, you tell your ELA teacher. They will give you or ask you what book you read, if you like it. Then they will ask you a little bit about the book too. So that's it. Then they will give you a ticket to fill your name out and the title of the book. You will put the ticket in the box. At the end of each month, 5 7th grade names and 5 8th grade names will be drawn from the box. The winners will each get a $10 gift card. 7th and 8th grade orchestras had a concert on Tuesday, November 19th. There's a middle school band concert tonight at the high school. It starts at 7 p.m. Chamber Club will be performing at the Light Up the Night Festival on December 6th. Many 7th and 8th grade band and orchestra students will be competing at the MSBOA Solo and Ensemble Festival, hosted at Novi Middle School, December 7th. The middle school student council will host the Senior Citizen Luncheon on Thursday, December 5th. We are looking forward to celebrate this holiday season with members of the community. Game Club is up and running at the middle school. It's very successful with over 30 active members. Over 20 students have signed up to participate in the middle school science fair. Projects are due in January, and then qualifying projects will go to the regional fair at the Cobo Hall in Detroit in March. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you. I guess your mom is going to be the first to know about that Thanksgiving, right after Thanksgiving sign-up.
We already got it.
Sweet.
I got my packet today too. So.
It's a great trip. Great trip. So thank you again for being here. We do appreciate you informing us of all the exciting things going on. Obviously, with the holidays, there's even more probably than usual. So thank you again for being here, and it was nice to see you. Next, we have our reports to the board. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. This evening, we will have a report on school start times. This summer and fall, we asked for volunteers from our administrative group to examine school start times based on some compelling research that is out there. And I assigned Ms. Minnick the task of kind of chairing the committee, and many of the administrators who served on that committee are here this evening. to support the report. And I will turn this over to Ms. Minnick and the committee.
Thank you. Good evening. As Dr. Matthews mentioned, several research studies do indicate a strong connection between adolescent sleep cycles, their mental health, and their academic performance. So in alignment with Board of Education Goal 3, to promote a culture of well-being, a committee was formed to explore possible school start and end times using this research as a guide, while considering many constraints, such as district transportation. Do we have enough buses, enough drivers? We looked at athletics. We looked at after-school clubs and after-school activities. We talked about before and after-school care programs and the like. So our committee is comprised of administrators in order to represent a variety of student groups and student grade levels. And committee participants with us this evening include Ms. Nicole Carter, Novi High School Principal, Mr. Andy Cohn, Novi Middle School Assistant Principal, Ms. Laura Carino, Parkview Elementary Principal, Ms. Julie Bedford, Deerfield Elementary Principal, Ms. Ann Hansen, Director of Early Childhood and Community Programming, and Mr. Brian Gordon, our Athletic Director. Additional committee participants include Ms. Cindy Valentine, Director of Transportation, Ms. Lisa Fenchel, Novi Meadows 5 Principal, Kristen Corian, Transportation Coordinator, and Mr. Robert Baker, Novi Middle School Principal. So thank you for this opportunity to present the research and our recommendation to you this evening. And Mr. Kuhn will start us off.
Could you switch this? Not seen it. I just mean like it so they can see it.
Excuse me.
Ms. Holly to the rescue.
Hi, everybody. My name is Andrew Combe. I'm the assistant principal at Novi Middle School. I kind of jumped at this opportunity to join this committee because I have some pretty strong feelings and support for student mental health. And sleep seems to be one of the most heavily researched components to kids' ability to stay stable and healthy mentally at school. So I'm just going to kind of present a little bit of the research that I was able to kind of find and consolidate. So one of the first things to kind of point out, this is a little bit hard to read graph, but it shows the current average kind of start times, what percentage of schools, the high school level, start at various different times. So you'll notice that in the column, at least, it's a little easier to see. Down at the bottom, before 7:30, only 10% of high schools nationwide start before 7:30, and ours starts, I believe, at 7:15. So we are well in that area. Something to keep in mind, because there's long established medical research talks about that adolescents, 12 to 18, do best on 8 to 10 hours of sleep, at least, and some going more than that. The average ideal is 9.25 hours of sleep. And one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that it's not that your student needs that amount of time anytime. You can't just tell a 13-year-old go to bed at 8 and get all that extra sleep. There's something called a sleep phase delay that happens in adolescence. So it's generally around the middle school and high school years that students' internal biological clocks shift so that they aren't particularly sleepy no matter how early they woke up or how much energy they have. They're not that sleepy at 8 or 9 o'clock. So they generally, it's 10:30 to 11:30 or even later before they feel tired. So this is, when they're sitting in their room on their phone or reading because they just can't fall asleep. 58%, according to the CDC, 58% of middle schoolers get less sleep than they need. This is a massive number. 73% of high schoolers get less sleep than they need, according to the Center for Disease Control. So this is kind of a quick summary of all that the CDC's put together. 6 out of 10 middle schoolers don't get enough sleep. 7 out of 10 high schoolers don't get enough sleep. And again, as we kind of mentioned, 9 to 12 hours for 6 to 12-year-olds, but when you hit that adolescent age, drops down, but not by a whole lot. It's still 8 to 10 hours of sleep that's needed, and a lot of our kids report, 5 or 6 hours of sleep that night. This is not something that affects everybody equally. We find that, the research done nationally across urban, suburban, wealthy, less wealthy districts shows that certain subgroups are disproportionately affected. So Asian and black and female subgroups are affected more heavily by this lack of sleep than other groups. Getting less than this 8-7 hours of sleep can easily make you angry, stressed out. One of the other challenges with this is that REM sleep, so most folks are familiar with this idea, REM sleep is the most restorative part of your sleep mentally. So when you fall asleep, your brain activity kind of goes up and down. And REM sleep is the sleep that lets you reset. It's the sleep that lets you mentally kind of go through the things in your day and be ready for the next day. Non-REM sleep is physically restorative. So the worst part, though, is that the longer you sleep, the more you are getting REM sleep. So when kids only get 4 or 5 hours, they get the physically restorative sleep, but they don't get the longest, most restorative REM sleep. So that's one of the other issues. It's not, every hour of sleep is not created equal. From a mental health impact, 3/4 of those who suffer from depression also suffer from a lack of sleep. It's been shown with a lot of support in the research that sleep deprivation increases the risk for things like diabetes and obesity, anxiety and depression, other mental illnesses, sports injuries, behavior problems, things at school where kids get frustrated and act out, auto accidents, especially for those of our students that drive, and health risk behaviors. Kids have a harder time. Willpower is a muscle, and that gets worn out too. And kids struggle to resist peer pressure when they're losing sleep. More than half of Americans lose sleep due to stress, but when you look at youth, it's particularly damaging. So you see here that for each 1 hour of sleep lost, students in self-reports report a 38% increase in feeling sad, feeling hopeless. Each hour of sleep, 58% more likely to have a suicide attempt. Of course, that doesn't mean 1 hour means a kid is 58% more likely to commit suicide, but 58% more likely to think that way than they did before. So, in addition, there's a really strong correlation that predicts hours of sleep and risky behaviors. So binge drinking, drunk driving, unprotected sex, these things are highly correlated with fewer hours of sleep. You can actually predict, on average, what kinds of risk behaviors kids can get into based on how much sleep they get. Obviously, as a school, we worry a lot about academic performance. Part of what happens during REM sleep is that your brain consolidates information, and so that doesn't happen when you're not getting enough sleep. So those kids that stay up till midnight cramming for something, it's going to just be gone if they don't get the sleep they need to consolidate that. So less sleep, higher risk of poor academic performance. Of course, these other behavioral things we talked about, aggression, impatience, irritability, mental illness, those things are going to impact academics as well. And less sleep increases the risk of not being able to pay attention. When the American Pediatric Association does a study every few years, and one of the things that they asked kids who reported having low stress. So they already categorize these kids as low stress or high stress. So you'll see here, the percentage of kids with low stress who say they get enough sleep is 90%. The percentage of kids with high stress that say they get enough sleep is only 48%. This kind of differential is huge in data. Usually when you look at the effect of something, the effect size is small, a few percentage. This is almost double. You can see similar things on the other column there. So this is teens who sleep fewer than 8 hours on a school night are more likely to report experiencing symptoms of stress. So if you get less than 8 hours of sleep on a school night, 50% of those students reported feeling irritable or angry, whereas only 32% of kids felt that way who got 8 or more hours. And again, as you look down this list, these are really dramatic differences. Feeling depressed or sad, 43% of kids who get 8 hours or less are reporting this. and 18% of kids who get enough sleep report this. So we know there are other things that can lead kids to be depressed or sad or nervous or anxious, but when you look at a report like this, the variable they're talking about is sleep here. So this leads us to asking about, what is our responsibility taking care of kids? And there are a lot of studies that have been done on schools that have delayed start times. So in schools that have done this, how has this had an impact? I made a note at the bottom to give you a sense. These studies were done in Colorado, Connecticut, Kentucky, Minnesota, Missouri, Rhode Island, Virginia, and so on. All over the place in developed environments, rural, urban, all kinds of different socioeconomic classes. And they all had pretty conclusive results, which, again, when you look at research, it's very rare that that kind of thing is that conclusive. So increased attendance rates, a decrease in disciplinary action, increase in student attention, a decrease in daytime sleepiness. One of the ones that was kind of interesting, parents reported an increase in the quality of the student-family interaction. I have middle schoolers. They go home and they're kind of done talking to me or anybody else because they've spent a lot of energy. So I would love that. And of course, increases in GPA and standardized test scores, which while that's nice, I think that our concern as a group that takes care of kids is their mental health. So probably, to me, the most valid piece of evidence is that we have health associations, the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Medical Association, the National Sleep Foundation. All four of these, as well as various others, have kind of agreed with the research telling us that middle and high school, kids in that sleep phase delay, middle and high schools should not start before 8:30 a.m. That is their recommendation as health professionals. So that was kind of my job, was to kind of take a look at this, share some of that research. And so now I'm going to turn it back over to Jill to talk about our proposals.
So given those outcomes from those research studies, the committee considered advantages and disadvantages of a variety of options. We considered the various numbers of bus runs. We explored each possible order of school start and end times. We considered changes to after-school offerings and before and after-school care. We also took into consideration traffic flows on main roads at these different times of possible school bell times. We also looked at impacts, potential impacts on bus drivers, care program workers, etc. And there were a number of outcomes. There's a number of possible start and end times in a variety of mixes to that effect. But the committee's proposal is as follows. To begin Novi Meadows at 7:30 in the morning and end the day at 2:22. Novi High School starts at 8, ends at 2:44. Novi Middle School starts at 8:30, end at 3:11, and all elementaries start at the same time and end at the same time. Currently, we have two different tiers. So all Novi elementaries would start at 9 in the morning and end at 3:52. So there are a number of advantages, disadvantages, drawbacks, concerns with this arrangement, and with any arrangement that we developed. But the advantages to this particular proposal is that high school and middle school students will get an additional 45 minutes of sleep. Novi Meadows would be dismissed before the elementaries, which allows for some older siblings to be home before their younger siblings. It provides equity to the elementary start times. All elementaries would start and end at the same time. We determined that there would be no needed change in the early childhood programming or the care programs. And it maintains driver's hours and hopefully our care worker hours as well. And it maintains the traffic flow here on Taft Road with Parkview and Woods, and with Meadows starting at a different time. But some of the drawbacks and the considerations include the fact that the high school still is not compliant with their recommendation of starting at 8:30 or later. There's the consideration of our younger students potentially being at bus stops earlier in the morning in the dark, in the winter. Our after-school activity schedules may be impacted. What about our athletic schedules? What about athletic transportation? How are those affected? And our late bus transportation? So these are all considerations and concerns that need to be addressed. And I would ask for any of our committee members to make comments in terms of how these start times might impact or not impact your programs or your buildings.
In terms of athletics, the one thing that we can control is what we do here in Novi. And so our start times, with us getting out at 2:44, the majority of our spring contests will start at 4 o'clock. If transportation can meet our needs in terms of getting, once we get out of class, we get kids changed, we can get on a bus and get to where we need to be, we would be, for the most part, in pretty good shape. To go any later, like the 8:30 slot, would present a lot of issues for athletics, primarily in the spring, because if you look at, you only have so much daylight early on. And so the majority of our facilities, baseball, softball, do not have lights, whereas where we have lacrosse and soccer, we do have lights, but other facilities do not, depending on what the situation with our district. We also had to take into consideration that we are over the court, our league is spread over 4 counties, if not 5 counties. And so the distances that we have to travel to get to wherever we're playing can be substantial, and then working in the whole traffic pattern and what 96 looks like at about 3:30, it can get to be quite daunting. With the proposal that we have in place for both middle school and high school, it certainly can work. Many middle schools do get out at the time that's being proposed. We're in 2 different middle school leagues. We're in one with the KLAA, and then we're also in another one which is called the ComSAC, which is Birmingham, Bloomfield Hills, West Bloomfield, and some of those schools. The majority of them do not get out till after 3 o'clock. And so it works for us. It absolutely will work for us in athletics. So as long as we're working together with transportation, I don't think we'll have any kind of an issue.
Can I ask a quick question kind of along those lines? Because if all the elementaries are out at the same time, which is 3:52, that's more buses, correct, that are being utilized. And you're talking about, I mean, how many extra buses do we have for athletic use? Because it would fall around that same time frame.
That's right.
You want to answer?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for your question. We do have 12 spare buses. At any given time, a number of those might be up on the hoist, or they might be in the shop for warranty work, what have you. And it is realistic that some of those routes may have to be outsourced to vendors that we do currently use when we run into constraints. So there may be additional costs for that we would have to examine as well.
Okay.
Our objective tonight is to present this report to the board and then bring this back as information and discussion on December 5th. And so what we would encourage the board to do is to analyze this report and then submit as many questions as you can ahead of time before December 5th so that the committee can be prepared to address those concerns on December 5th. We really wanted to just get this information to the board this evening to have you kind of start to think about it and try to identify the questions and concerns that you might have. And then we could have a thorough and robust discussion on December 5th about this topic as you get us your questions and we come prepared with answers to those questions on December 5th. The goal would be, hopefully, on December 19th for the board to vote, if they're comfortable at that time to vote on this issue, because we want to be able to communicate early and often to all of the families in the district and also to our staff about what the changes would be for the 2021 school year, because we would attempt to implement this if the board approves for the next school year. And so we would like to have as much lead time as possible to do that. And so that's why we're bringing it to the board tonight for a report, bring it back on the 5th for information and discussion. We have not done a parent survey because we were concerned that the research is quite compelling, and and yet some of the concerns that might be raised through a parent survey may not be in line with what the research would say. And so we think that this is a proposal that would meet the needs of our district, would meet the needs of our students, and that we could implement effectively as we move forward. If a parent survey came back and said, don't change the high school start time, I think we would have a difficult time as educators supporting that, even if the majority of our parents said that was what they would like to have happen. And so that's why we didn't engage in a parent survey. After tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to take this report and share it with our buildings so that they know what the proposal will be. And then we're going to ask all of our building level administrators to either have Ms. Minnick or myself or some members of the committee come to a meeting at their buildings, or to share this information in their school newsletters between now and December 5th and December 19th, so that parents are aware that we're having this discussion, and that parents could come to the board meeting to share their either their insights, their concerns, or their affirmations of the proposed changes. And so we wanted to present this to the board tonight, and then begin kind of the information campaign with our staff and our families after tonight.
So would you like us to filter all the questions through your office, or did you have?
I think you would route them through Ms. Holly, and she
Okay.
could get them to the committee and to me, and we'll make sure that we have all the as many answers as we can come up with for December 5th. And recognizing that during that meeting there will be other questions that arise as we engage in the discussion. But tonight we really wanted to come and get the information in front of the board for you to begin to think about it.
One quick question, please.
So a quick question?
Yeah. Thanks, Jill. Was there a second? So I don't want to spend a ton of time going through information and discussion, because I think we're probably ignorant to all the work that you guys put into it. You know, I understand your presentation, Brian, was, I get it. Was there one that was close that you didn't go with, or after you looked at all the different scenarios, this really was the only one that really seemed to work?
I'll say that it really ended up being the latter, that this really seemed to be the one that would work the best.
Okay.
We had other options that were developed, but for whatever reason, the pros and the cons weren't, it was more in the con column than there were in the pros. So I don't know if anyone else had other observations. I was remiss in not mentioning that Dr. Gary Kinzer participated in the committee as well, and he brought keen insight not only just from a staff retention and hiring perspective, but also as a former elementary principal. So, I'm sorry, you were over there.
So we will filter our questions through Mrs. Holly, and then I would certainly encourage the building principals also as questions come up to make sure they get to you, because maybe that can all be addressed at once, and we will also be able to hear then what concerns or questions are coming up from the parents that you engage with, which I think would be helpful for us to be.
Can we get a list of some of these studies that back this information? Because there's a lot of them that are referenced here, but, and one of your graphs, it says based on only 50 kids. So
Yep, we can get all that information to you.
I'd like to see what some of the studies were done, why they were
Sure.
done. And
This just represents a sample of the research studies that we were reading and discussing, so we're happy to put that together.
Reference on that.
Absolutely.
This will be a topic conversation at the coffee with the superintendent in December as well, to try to get some parental feedback. So come early, because we have a small room.
Standing room only, maybe in that one. Okay, so definitely get any questions that we have to Mrs. Holly earlier, probably the better, because if there's more questions coming in, then you can get them answered in a timely way for that 5th meeting, especially with the holiday coming up in between. So thank you again. Thank you for your work. I know that every year we have had several parents that have raised this as an issue to the board kind of regularly, that they see the benefit of it, and hopefully they will be prominent as well in terms of getting some information too, but some of them have shared studies with us as well that certainly support the work, and I can appreciate the need to kind of be responsive to the goals that we have set. And if this does help us do that, then it's definitely a direction we need to be considering, and maybe some people will think long overdue. But thank you. Thank you for spearheading it. Thank you for being here, and thank you all as well for being here and for being part of this, because it's important, obviously, as we move forward, to do things in a way that both honors our students' needs and protects their well-being. So
Thank you. Our pleasure.
thank you again. All right, next is our first opportunity for comments from the audience. This is an opportunity for comments related to agenda items only. If we do have anyone that would like to speak to the board, I would just ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes, not to single out board members or things, but to speak to the board as a whole. You've been here before, but just for consideration, just that if there is something that's brought up, we may direct the administration to get back with you at some point, but we'll not have a kind of give and take at this point. So without further ado, I know you've already handed your card to Mrs. Holly. Please.
All right. Hello, my name is Sharon Trumpy. As you know, I attended the Board of Education meetings on September 19th and October 3rd to express my concerns regarding my child's science teacher displaying a political poster in her classroom. I have shared with you the anxiety that this caused for my child and the concerns I have heard from other parents and students who did not feel comfortable voicing their feelings to the school district. I recently attended 2 meetings of the policy committee, and it is my understanding that the board members will be discussing the adoption of the Michigan Code of Educational Ethics this evening, as well as an addition to the employee handbook specifying that a teacher's First Amendment rights are limited when acting on behalf of the district. I'm here tonight to thank the policy committee for their hard work and to ask the members of the board to approve the proposals brought by the policy committee. I feel that if these measures had been in place at the start of this school year, my concerns for my child could have been addressed swiftly and without the immense stress that this has caused for my family. Instead, expressing my concerns to my child's teacher resulted in a derogatory and inflammatory email from that teacher accusing me of being intent on inciting controversy. The school district's remedy to my child's distress was not to expect this teacher to put a student's interest above her own, but to move my child to a different classroom. While I am grateful that my son is now in a supportive and welcoming classroom, I find it disappointing, to say the least, that the response to this situation placed the burden on a child rather than the adults. The message that my child received was not, "You deserve to feel safe and respected in your classroom," but "You don't belong in this classroom." And while my child has been moved to a new classroom, other children remain in the care of a teacher who felt it appropriate to attack a concerned parent rather than demonstrate empathy for a struggling child. In an effort to effect change, I have been forced to share my child's personal history with you, complete strangers. I've had to justify to you why my child's distress is legitimate. There are about 100 other children in this teacher's care every day, and they all have a story. Revealing their private histories should not be necessary for the district to have empathy for them and to protect their rights in the classroom. I'd like to end by sharing with you my personal experience as a teacher. I currently have 26 students in my mixed age group classroom, ranging in age from 3 to 6 years old. Every year, I sit with my students at the start of the school year and I ask them, "Whose classroom is this?" And every year, already wise to the ways of the world, they reply in a monotone unison, "Miss Sharon's classroom." "No," I respond, "this is our classroom. This room doesn't belong to me, it belongs to all of us. We all take care of our room and we all take care of each other. We all belong here." That is what I am asking of you. Ensure that all students in NCSD are in a classroom where they belong. Just because teachers have more power than their students, it does not mean that they are more important than their students. Although my concerns for my son stem from a political poster, the question before the board today has nothing to do with politics. I am asking the Novi Community School District to recognize and formalize a student's right to be treated with consideration and respect in their own classroom. Student safety, which includes a commitment to student mental health, is not a conservative or a liberal issue. I would hope that all adults are able to put aside their personal political beliefs to affirm that children have the right to feel seen and valued in their own classroom. Whenever a teacher's speech or expression infringes upon the student's right, I would hope that the district is committed to protecting their students. I am asking the Board of Education tonight to take steps to ensure that all teachers in Novi Community School District understand and commit to speaking on behalf of the school district. I would like to voice my support for the adoption of Policy Update 6.07 regarding the new Michigan Code of Educational Ethics, as well as the proposed additions to the Employee Handbook detailed in the supporting documentation, which clarifies limits to a teacher's freedom of expression in the workplace. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have our consent items. These are items that don't really need any discussion, so I would entertain a motion. Thank you, Mrs. Hood.
I move that the Novi Community Schools Board of Education approve the consent items as presented.
Second. Okay, it's been moved by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mrs. Rooney. I will call the question. All those in favor of approving the two consent items on our agenda this evening, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next, we have our very exciting action items. The first is our summer tax levy. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. In order to continue to collect summer taxes, as in past years, the board must adopt a resolution to continue the summer tax levy by December 31st, 2019. The district must also have an agreement in place with the collecting governmental entities, the City of Novi and the City of Wixom. The amount of the summer taxes collected may be either 50% or 100% of the total levy. In the past, the district has levied 50% of the total levy. This report was presented at the November 7th, 2019 regular meeting for review. It comes back tonight for approval to adopt the resolution to continue the summer tax levy at 50% of the total levy. So we would ask that the board approve this recommendation this evening.
All right, I would entertain a motion. Thank you, Mrs. Hood.
I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education, in the best interest of the school district, authorize the approval to adopt the resolution to continue the summer tax levy at 50% of the total levy tax as listed above.
Thank you.
Support.
All right, it's been moved by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mr. Smith. This was discussed last time, so I will call the question unless there's someone that has something pressing about the summer tax levy. Seeing no one, I will call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Fantastic. Next is the robotics field trip. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. The Novi High School first robotics team, Frog Force, has been invited by Thunder Down Under, an Australian robotics team, to run a workshop in Fuzhou, China. The goal is to teach 6 FTC teams how to start, run, and compete with the first FTC team. Frog Force 503 and Thunder Down Under students will teach the Fuzhou students to design, build, and program for this year's FTC game. Frog Force 503, 2 adults and 4 students will meet with the Thunder Down Under team in Beijing on November 24th, 2019, then travel to Fuzhou for a 2-day workshop to assist the FTC competition before returning to Michigan on December 1st. Students will miss 2 days of school for this trip. The Thunder Down Under will pay half of the team member expenses to take the trip. The balance will be divided between the 4 students, and their expected cost will be $618.25 each, plus the cost of food. Students will be staying at the Hotel Beijing while in China. Current background checks have been requested of all chaperones. This comes to the board, as you can see, in a less than timely manner, and there was the paperwork was not submitted before. Early enough to get this on the agenda before, so we recognize that this is an action item when typically it comes as an item for discussion first and then action. This is a trip that Frog Force has taken before in the past, and we're very successful, and so we would ask the board to approve this recommendation this evening.
Okay. I would entertain a motion. Mrs. Hood. Or Mrs. Dr. Ruskin.
No, it's okay. Mrs. Hood can keep going.
She's on a roll. Go ahead.
Okay. I move that the Novi Community Schools Board of Education approve the 2019 Michigan First Robotics trip to China on November 23rd, 2019 through December 1st, 2019.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mr. Mena. I will just say, I know that Mrs. Howley has been working, this is a person that is relatively new to submitting the paperwork, so thank you for working with her to get things submitted by tonight so that we can approve it before they leave. And it is sponsored by a different group, which is part of the reason it wasn't just automatically on.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, it's a different group, so sometimes we put it on for consent, but it's not exactly the same. They're going to a similar place in China, but it's a different group that is sponsoring them. So,
Will you remind me who pays the chaperone expense?
that's the students, it's rolled into the students. So because the Thunder Down Under is covering some of that, obviously.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So if there's no further questions, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the robotics field trip to China, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next, we have our information discussion. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. The Governance and Policy Committee has reviewed the following Lusk Albertson recommended updates and modifications to the Novi Community School District Policy Manual and is bringing them before the board for information and discussion this evening. The proposed revisions are presented by section with specific update number for each for ease of reference. The committee's suggested changes are marked below in red. So the first one is bylaw update on conflict of interest, and you can see the changes that are recommended there to clear up any confusion regarding which board members are subject to conflict of interest policy.
There's just some redundancy in the other one.
Like they're not allowed to order Jimmy John's.
Yes, the food delivery thing apparently is an issue in some high schools. We have been fortunate that it hasn't caught on here, but.
So the second policy is, as Mr. Smith previewed, is on food deliveries at the high school. We prohibit them from ordering food to be delivered during the school day, either directly from a restaurant or through smartphone apps. And so that has been a problem at some high schools, but we don't allow it, and this puts in policy that will not be allowed. Curriculum changes are recommended there. For the development, implementation, and ongoing evaluation of the curriculum, and that changes will be approved by the board. Personnel, medical examinations, there's some recommended changes in the wording there. Policy 6.07, the Code of Ethics. And so the school districts expect all individuals working for or working with or for its students to comply with all applicable professional codes of ethics, including the Michigan Code of Educational Ethics, which is a new document that was developed by the Michigan Department of Education.
I have a question about that.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we not have anything like this in the current employee handbook?
The Code of Ethics?
Yeah, a reference to it?
It's new.
This particular one is brand new, and
Okay.
so it wasn't around before, and that's why we're specifically referencing it in the policy.
Got it, thank you.
Can I add? I would say that it anchors a lot of the content that's already in our handbook, but this really serves as an anchor to attach a lot of the content of the handbook already.
Okay. The policy on the prohibition of referral or assistance
This was a change to state law.
changed to
Correct.
state law, correct? And so there was a clarification that the policy does not apply to employees, board members, and school officials who are parents or legal guardians of the student to which they are talking. Budget planning and adoption. This is important in that it puts in our policy that the balance should not fall below 10% of the preceding year's expenses. We've never had the number in policy, so that will be good for us as we negotiate with our different groups.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
Did they suggest the use of the word should, just to give us some room?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, in financial emergency situations, you know, if
You want the room to be able to reverse.
we would
Okay.
come to the board. We understand that the board's goal is 10%, but if there's some clear financial emergency, it
Okay, I
may be
understand.
necessary to go below 10%. We would not assume that we would do that, but that would give us a little bit of flexibility.
And it takes out that GASB 54 because they're always coming up with new GASB requirements, right, that have different numbers, so to eliminate that.
Yep.
There's a fixed asset policy change that is needed, as you can see there.
Vehicles.
Right. The policy on school and community relations, we look at option 2 is what we currently do. iChat criminal background checks will be performed annually for each volunteer. And then in addition, these are the policy changes, so they would come to the board for approval. There is some supporting documentation that comes as well. One of them is, as you can see, the Michigan Code of Ethics that we've provided for you. And then also in the employee handbook, there was a recommendation based on some of the conversations that the policy committee had about how to address classroom decorations. And so the first statement is what Lusk and Albertson, Kevin Sutton proposed. An alternate version is also provided that we would like some feedback from the board on. We've kind of expanded it beyond just instructional employees to recognize that all Novi Community School District employees have a responsibility, especially when they're operating as employees of the district, to speak as employees of the district and not to promote their own personal beliefs, including but not limited to personal, religious, political, or other opinions. And so that alternate version tries to expand it to recognize that bus drivers, secretaries, others in the district also have a responsibility to speak when they're in their employment role as district employees and not as individuals.
So this is just information discussion. I appreciate the alternative version. I know that during our committee discussion, we were going over a lot of different things that didn't come up that we should consider.
Right.
So I don't know who brought that to your attention, but I appreciate that. Yes, did you have a question, Mr. Smith? Oh, sorry, you were looking.
So those are just supporting documents. The Michigan Code of Educational Ethics is provided to you as well, and is referenced in the policy, but is not officially part of the policy. So what the board would be asked to approve are the policy changes, and then the supporting documentation would support those policy changes.
Right. So are there questions or comments that board members have about any of those in general?
I do.
Okay.
We-
Can you note which one you're,
Well, it's generally for all of them,
Okay.
but are there, again, we talked about administrative guidelines being created for all of our policies. Where are we with that?
We have a version that we can share with the board to let you see where we are currently at with the administrative guidelines.
Because I would especially be interested in seeing what's written up on 7.01, as we had discussed, to see how we're going to handle it. I guess the big change really on this one is that this used to be a policy where if an action took place, then there was a specific consequence that was required per law, and that consequence got taken out. And one of the concerns that I had in policy committee was whether or not this was still considered a disciplinary policy, since normally common sense would say that in order to have a disciplinary policy, there would have to be a consequence involved there. It's obviously not going to be in the policy, so that's why I'm kind of wondering what might be written up for that specific one. Even if you can't get all the administrative guidelines, if we could just get something written around that, so I can get a good understanding of how that's going to be.
that's 7002?
7.01.
Oh,
The
7.
referral or assistance.
01. Okay, so, and I think they're calling them administrative regulations, which really sounds stronger than guidelines. All right.
And then with regards to the, if you're asking for our opinion with regards to the the text that we're putting into the handbook. You know, certainly I do like the alternative version much better than the original one.
I do too.
Yeah, okay. Any other thoughts?
I just had a secondary thought on I like the alternative version better also, but I asked Miss Minnick to do a little homework because we were, just a little homework, I hope. We were talking, Bobby, you and I were talking a couple months ago about our district's effort to really have a standardized classroom, I'll say design, although that's not really and so we've invested a lot of money in our furnishings, our flexible furniture. And so I asked Miss Minnick how much we have invested in that, and it's a little over $5 million. And so I think this is a good kind of piece of that puzzle on what we're expecting in our classrooms and really throughout the district. So I really like this too, and thank you, Dr. Matthews, for giving us the alternative.
And I appreciate the feedback that you provided in our conversation.
Yeah, I do like that better, and certainly every employee can have an impact on a child, you know, so, and to your point, Mrs. Hood, just the whole idea that we do want children to have equitable experiences in their classrooms too, so it just gives that additional talking point, you know, for our administrators to use as they're considering, you know, the classrooms at the start of the year or whenever, at any point in time during the year, and what kind of environment they're creating, learning environment they're creating for their students, which I think we all are on board with, wanting that to be the best experience for our students as possible. So, any other comments or questions about any of the policies in here? Obviously, there's some of them that are new, which is why it's information discussion, because we do have to have a couple of readings on anything new. So we decided to keep them together because there was discussion, particularly about these, that was a little more involved at our board governance and policy committee meeting. Anything additionally? Okay, if something does come up before next week, or there's another thought that you have that maybe something that we failed to include, please get that information to Dr. Matthews so that we can perhaps incorporate it into the final approved document by next week.
So these will come back on December 5th. for the
Back
board
on
to
December
approve.
5th for approval. All right, fantastic. Next is our second opportunity for comments from the audience. It's an opportunity for anyone in our audience, who's still left in our audience, we lost a few, to speak about anything that is within our jurisdiction. If there is anyone, seeing no one rush the podium, we will move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. I would like to report, as was reported by our middle school student, that our 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. was a great success. I was not, and Ms. Murphy was not at the last board meeting because we were both chaperones on the trip. The weather was great. The students were very energetic, respectful, and great fun, and the experience for everyone seemed very positive. It should be noted that we actually received compliments from customers at some of the restaurants that we ate at that our students were so well behaved. So when you go to a Roy Rogers restaurant and outside of George Washington's birthplace, and customers come up to you and say, "I can't believe your students are so well behaved," you take that as a tremendous compliment, and so because they get a lot of groups that go through those restaurants. So I would like to thank Mr. Kenny Fenchel, our middle school social studies teacher, who organizes annually this trip. I also would like to thank all the chaperones, middle school staff, One Meadow staff, Detective Julie Warren, and Board President Bobby Murphy for giving of their time and energy to make this trip a great success for our students. While we were gone to Washington, D.C., the Novi community once again voted to support our schools, and this is my first chance to publicly thank our community for overwhelmingly passing our sinking fund and bond proposal. I'd like to express my appreciation to our community for their vote and promise that we will use the money wisely to support our students, staff, and community. I'd also like to thank Ms. Minnick for her work on preparing the bond proposals and communicating about them throughout the course of the fall. In addition, Willie Minna, Lou Martin, Bhavani Conneru, and many others were instrumental in getting the word out about the bond, and their efforts were greatly appreciated. As you may know, we are entering the snowy season, having already had one snow day. We take great care to monitor the weather and make decisions that will keep our students and staff safe. We will continue to use School Messenger to communicate decisions about the weather closings or delays. We'll also use our social media accounts, Facebook and Twitter, to communicate. And finally, we will get the word out to the local media to ensure that everyone knows if the weather is going to impact us. But I would like to remind people that the weather will cause buses, especially to be slow during the day. If there's snow on the roads, because traffic in general slows down. And so we are working hard to communicate effectively about delays. And it's a tricky business because if you call and the parents have used their home phone number for the call, they're standing outside, so they don't get the call. And so we're working, Ms. Minnick and Ms. Valentine are working hard to try to figure out how to effectively communicate about that. And I'm sure Dr. Weber will mention it this evening, but we had a great experience with the Dearborn Fordson High School and our incubator students from Novi High School yesterday. And I'd like to thank Dr. Weber for his continued leadership in this area and continuing to provide opportunities for our students. And that's my report for this evening.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Next are our administrative reports. Ms. Minnick.
Thank you. Good evening. As Dr. Matthews alluded to, last week was a challenging week for our transportation department. Beginning on Monday, we had snow on Monday. We ended up dismissing a little bit early, and I want to thank each and every one of our bus drivers and transportation aides. We will always put safety ahead of timeliness, and so the buses were late Monday afternoon as well as even Wednesday morning as they were trying to get through subdivisions that hadn't been plowed and there was ice under the snow and so forth. But one of the snafus we ran into was communicating with parents, and last year we used the Remind app to send out alerts to our parents when buses were running behind, and that was returned to being operable in short order by the next day. So we are using that Remind app, and we encourage our parents to sign up for that. I also want to thank our maintenance and our custodial crews. They were maybe caught off a little bit off guard with the earliness of the snow and the ice, so they did a terrific job getting after it and plowing the lots and the sidewalks. And our business office is busy as well. I don't want to speak for Gary, but I'm sure he would agree that Jody Melvin, our payroll supervisor, is doing a terrific job of taking all of the recent negotiations and the Me Too language and incorporating that so that our staff will realize those increases on Monday's paycheck. And so she did a terrific job of working hard to get those all included. In the area of food service, I had a meeting today with Eval Gazzaretto and our regional manager, and I'm pleased to report that already our breakfast sales through September and October are already in excess of a 5% growth. One of our Board of Ed goals. So we're watching that and attending to that. So all good things.
You might mention the cafe as well?
Yes. Today we had a discussion about the sales at the cafe at the Novi Public Library, and sales are booming there. In October, we had sales revenue in the amount of $16,000. Oh my gosh. In excess of $16,000. So it's exciting. We're providing, I think, a wonderful service to our community members. They seem to be enjoying all the offerings. Apparently, paninis are the hottest selling item there, other than coffee. Reports are that the community enjoys interacting with the students that are working there. And so I think it's a benefit for every party involved.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for the update. Appreciate it. Dr. Kinzer.
Thank you. I would like to echo Ms. Minnick's comment about Jody Malvin. So she has really gone above and beyond to ensure that this process goes smoothly, and on Monday, virtually all of our employees will see increases as a result of our recent negotiations. So thank you to Mrs. Malvin. And then also our next Mentee Monday for our new teachers is on Monday, December 2nd. Director of Student Services, Darby Hoppenstedt, will be leading our new teachers through a work session examining our various multi-systems of support that we have in place for both behavior as well as academics. So I'm sure that will be a great session for our new teachers. Thank you.
Thank you.
The past,
Dr. Weber.
today our instructional coaches, interventionists, and administrators led each of our fourth grade teachers working together to improve our approach to teaching reading in third and fourth grade. This is part of the district improvement plan that you all voted upon. It's part of one of Dr. Matthews' goals and our team is attending to that quite well. Last Monday, we had a 3-hour student-led professional development focused upon the relationships between students and administrators. We had students of Novi High School and alumni of Novi High School put together. They worked for about 4 months to put together this opportunity and did an outstanding job of facilitating real, meaningful dialogue with our administrators on what it's like to be a student in the Novi Community School District, a student today, and what their needs are. If I was going to distill that 3 hours down to the two things that I heard, it was the fact that first, our students need to be respected. And they're not asking us to be their best friends. They're not asking us to go and know everything about them, but from a very simple piece, our students simply want to be treated with respect in every classroom they walk into and by every person they come into contact with, every board member, every administrator, and every teacher. And that's also 9,000 data points that we have from a student survey that we've given over 3 years that backs that up. The second thing that was very clear is that we need to do a far better job of communicating what we have available to our kids. What I heard again and again is that our students either don't know what services that they have available to them in our schools or are having a very hard time getting to them. So if that's the case, that's something we need to be significantly better at. So that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Appreciate the updates. Next is our opportunity for board communication. Any board members have things that they would like to share with the board? I know there's been a lot going on that we've attended. Go ahead, Mrs. Smith.
Okay, I have 3 things. I had not before attended the Novi Youth Assistance Breakfast. I know Mr. Smith has been active in Novi Youth Assistance. So they had, that was last Friday before last, the annual report. And Linda Chinfara is the chairman, and keynote speaker was Dr. R.J. Weber. But it was a nice morning, and I got a sense of really the work that they do. And so, a cultural reference here, the new Mr. Rogers movie is coming out. And I love that thing that he had said about his mom. If you're in crisis, look for the helpers. So these guys are the helpers, and we are lucky, and I'm grateful. So very nice morning. And then another morning that Mr. Smith was there too was the NEF hosted the Novi Chamber of Commerce last Friday morning right here at the 5th grade house. And they do that once a month. Jason Smith and Chris Harpino were there to just talk about NEF and their interaction with the business community. And so that's so much value that our schools get from our business community, and I'm grateful for that too. So it was a nice, really a nice morning. And then lastly, yesterday morning, no, it was about noon, at Fordson High School, Dr. Matthews referenced it, was the kickoff or the launch of the incubator class at Fordson High School. So first of all, Fordson High School, oh my gosh, is that a gorgeous building. Never been there before. Built in 1928. Apparently my Uncle Irv went there. So, but anyway, so we launched they launched the incubator class. I say they, the Fordson leadership, our kids, our incubator kids, and Macy's. Our incubator kids donated $5,000, which was part of their Quest plan, and Macy's donated $5,000. And so they will be, the Fordson kids will be working with the Macy's at Fairlane Mall, just as our kids work at this mall. So Dr. Ruskin was there with me, and she probably has more to say about it. I'm sure you do.
Fordson is amazing, and it's interesting because I kept hearing we have to go to this thing that's coming, but RJ was like treating it like it was just this big giant surprise. But I had been to Fordson for a volleyball game, and just the building is gorgeous. You feel like you're somewhere in Washington, D.C. in some historical museum. So, and it was about the incubator, and I knew it was going to be something special. So I went, and it was beyond expectations. It was really great. Ryan Hewer, who is an alumni last year, who goes to University of Michigan, was there, and really to hear him tell his story from his perspective. I have Quest sweatshirts and t-shirts, and I wear them around, and I understand the concept, but I really didn't get it until I heard Ryan tell his story about how his vision was to create a brand that was eventually going to circle back around and give back to an underprivileged community, or a community that maybe needed more opportunity, I should say. And to see his smile and to see his face that actually came to fruition, and that they received $10,000 like our students did last year to have this innovative, creative opportunity to work with a really dynamic woman at Macy's, Fairlane. And their board members were there, and their city chamber people were there, and their education foundation was there, and they were so proud. And honestly, and I talked to Ryan about this after, I'm so excited to see what the Fordson students do, because I think, every student has a different value and a different vision, and so to see what products they come up with and innovate is going to be really awesome. And I think that there's more to come beyond that, but we'll see how it all shakes out. So that's what I have to say about that. I have more, but I'm not going to... I don't know if it's my turn or if Kathy just wanted
No, I'm
me to.
done.
It can be your turn.
So I attended a couple other things throughout the district or throughout the community. I went to a mental health suicide prevention speaker at Detroit Country Day a week ago prior to that, and I look forward to sharing that information with our mental health dialogue committee. There was a lot of really pearls that were taken from that, and I think that sharing that with that group will just expand our opportunities to help our kids here in Novi. I agree that Novi Youth Assistance is a great program, and I would love to hear them share that with more kids, not just kids who are needing help and in crisis, but maybe kids who can help other kids, and to give them opportunities and teach them the wellness and the kindness that we can all share amongst our students. So just being more proactive and getting their word out to lots and lots of kids, and not just kids in need. So I went to the MASB conference up in Traverse City. Marianne, you were right. I used to be like, why is she talking about the snow in November when she was unsure about driving there? Well, there was snow squalls and 4 inches of snow, and it was quite a thing, and you were right. So it was a great opportunity to connect with other board members throughout the state. They had the delegate assembly. There wasn't much change on what was presented on their website. So that was a nice opportunity just to hear what they're doing and what resolutions they're passing. I did attend an equity and inclusion and diversity little session, if you will. There were some great ideas, some good resources. There was discussion about student voice and student voice at the board table. So I look forward to sharing that information with the cabinet and seeing kind of what we can do with it. But it's interesting to always hear what other people are doing and what we're doing great here in Novi and what we can pull from them as well. So it was a really good opportunity. On Saturday of this week, the Novi Special Education PAC is hosting Sensational Santa, which I believe is at Parkview this year.
Yes.
This is an opportunity for kids in the community who are maybe have some sensory issues and not able to have a holiday experience like other kids at the mall or at big parties. So there was a Sign Up Genius, and so we're providing an opportunity to kids in our community to celebrate the holidays, and those who celebrate Christmas and Santa will be able to have a picture, and I know that their families and parents will cherish that. So very cool.
On that, I just have a question. Is there an opportunity to expand it and give another day or some more time? Because Sign Up Genius has been filled up for a while.
So it's interesting you say that. Last year we had, it was the first opportunity to do it, and they did offer 2 days. They offered, I believe, Friday evening and Saturday. And the committee took on more than they could chew. They really didn't know how big it was going to be. So this year it was decided to kind of bring it back in a little bit and work with, I think it was, I'm blanking on her name. You're like, who is it?
That's okay.
Yes,
The sign up for Pictures with Santa has been full for a while. So I'm just
Yes.
wondering if there's a wait list or something like that. There's a potential,
If
I
you-
understand it's a large
Yeah,
event
yeah.
and a lot of planning, but if we can accommodate more kids, is there something else we could do through the?
I love the
as
idea
far as
of a
the board
wait
helping
list.
them out, so.
Yeah, I like the idea of a wait list, and I will bring that to the group. And last year, there was people who signed up, and, you know, the particular group of children that you're dealing with, sometimes they wake up in the morning and it's not a good day for them, and then you do have people who are sitting around. So I think having an opportunity for a wait list, or maybe having an on-call if parents are willing to do that, would be a great idea, so I will share that. So if you know of anybody in particular, please forward them their name to me, and I will get it.
Yes,
We will be in contact with them to make sure that there's an opportunity for them.
Okay.
So,
Great, what a great thing to do.
yeah.
Really, fantastic. Other board members?
I'll just add on to that because CPAC is also still doing their 4th annual
Above and beyond.
Above and Beyond.
Yes.
And they're taking nominations, they're currently taking nominations and will be taking nominations for a while. But if anybody sees a Novi Community School District employee, could be a bus driver, could be a student, could be parapro, could be a janitor, lunch lady, whatever, they're all available for nomination. So I'd like to see it go beyond just the teachers and some of the kids that are doing some other things, and make sure those kids get recognized for this too. So if community members see any of that happening, please don't be afraid to nominate somebody.
Yeah.
Everybody gets recognized.
We love to have kids, and last year we had 2 finalists, and one was a teacher and one was a student at the high school. So we really love to see the student nominations. It's really amazing when we look through that. It's fantastic.
All right, terrific. Other board members? Mr. Mena?
Yeah, just a couple things. First, on the athletic front, we have 2 young ladies from our swim and dive team that made states. They'll be competing tomorrow in Holland. That's Anna Shinohara and Miranda Pryor. So good luck to them tomorrow. Novi will also be hosting 2 football state semifinal games this Saturday. We're really, really excited about that. I mean, I don't know if that happens very often, where one host location hosts 2 games in one day. So we're pretty proud about that. At 11 a.m. We'll be hosting Cass City. We expect the entire town will come down from the thumb against Jackson Lumen Christie. So we're kind of a nice in-between spot for them. The 3 o'clock game will be Birmingham Seaholm against Detroit King. So that should be a real good game. Lake Orion will be representing the MHSA, bringing their entire video crew. So they'll be the crew that'll be televising the games. And this is a really good opportunity, again, for us to showcase our high school. There'll be a lot of media there, and obviously most high school press boxes cannot fit all of the media that needs to get in there, especially for a game that happens this time of year where it's really cold. So we will be setting up, actually, some media spots inside the weight room. So we're going to move some of the equipment out. We're going to set some tables. We're going to go ahead and tap into the audio stream. So we're going to broadcast live over WOVI, and then we're going to go ahead and just kind of play it inside the weight room so that the media will be able to listen to it. Probably have a big screen TV there so that they can also watch the game. It'll probably be like a 4-minute delay, so if they do miss something, they can kind of catch it afterwards. And then the whole crew. We've got a lot of the coaches, normally the folks that work football game. Everybody's volunteering. I think everybody's really excited about that. And then also, again, I wanted to thank the community for supporting the bond. We really are fortunate here. We're fortunate that our community gets it. They understand that our school district is an important piece of this community. But I'd also like to take this time to thank somebody. I don't know why she was left out of all the thank yous, but Trustee Ruskin was very instrumental in helping out with this, with our push to get this bond passed. So I thank you very much for helping us out. Thank you.
All right. Other board members? Mr. Smith?
Ms. Minnick, can you remind me of the agreement that we have with Evol, or the right word, with the library, with the profits that are generated from the coffee shop?
So the agreement is among the Novi Community Library, Novi Community Schools, and Chartwells. So those are the three parties to the agreement. And the sales at Novi Public Library are run through our food service program as if they are a catering revenue. Just as if we had provided a meal to a meeting at the library or some refreshments at a meeting, that's how we're accounting for those sales there.
So then that all flows back to Chartwells, correct?
No, it actually flows back to the district.
Okay.
The way the rules work is that catering, along with a la carte and other non-meal sales, are mathematically calculated to be equivalent in such a way to a meal, and then those meals are how the management fee is calculated for Chartwells. So if you recall, the annual contract with Chartwells calls for a monthly administrative fee and then a management fee based on number of meals sold. So the catering revenue and the a la carte revenue is converted to a number of meals based on a mathematical equation as stated by MDE, and then the management fee, is based on those equivalent meals.
That's really simple and clear thinking. Let me try it another way. If we sell a cup of coffee for $1, is there some pennies on that dollar that go back to the Novi Community School District?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I was at the Novi Educational Foundation meeting on Monday, and Tia Maurice brought up an idea, and as we all know, she does a ton for our community with Feed the Need and everything else. She pointed out, which I was not aware of, but it makes sense, that a great portion of the sales there are preschool and after-school high school students that use the library as kind of the hangout.
Yes.
So the suggestion was, is there, if it's high school students that are driving a lot of that revenue, potentially, is there a possibility that we could have a promotion and call it Wildcat Hour, like a happy hour thing before school and after school, where maybe a portion of those sales could be given back to the Novi Educational Foundation to redistribute amongst all kids? And is that something we could at least consider?
Absolutely, that's a creative notion.
It
Anything
wasn't
can be
mine,
explored,
but I'm just
absolutely.
getting it where it needs to go. So
You
let's.
added the happy hour part, right?
Well,
Happy
I don't know what the name is,
Right.
but you know, because NEF could then make a donation to Feed the Need. What I'm learning, you guys, is it's just a big circle.
Yeah.
It's like NEF happened to be the vehicle for Macy's and the incubator, and Dr. Weber played a huge role in that. Dr. Weber at the Novi Youth Assistance Breakfast played a video that was very moving, but it was along the lines of you never know when a good deed is done, the wrinkle or the ripple that's going to have down the road. And it was, I still need to get that link from you, RJ, because it was really a cool, it was all done in a different language. But my point is NEF does a lot of great things. You know, they get that going, and now the ripple effect is Fordson and what they're going to be able to do, and it's just going to impact multiple lives. It's similar with the NYA. I don't think as many people know about that as possible. Will you remind everyone of the date of the bowl-a-thon? So there's
It's March 7th.
March 7th. Okay, so it's a mark your calendar, March 7th. And that ties directly into the chamber breakfast where we go out to local communities. What'll be different, and I can say because I'm not just the vice chair, but I serve now on the bowling committee with Bob Stee and John O'Brien. I do have a bowling shirt that's got Mickey Mouse on it. I wear it twice a year now. But anyway, it's about reaching out to different businesses in the community, and we've increased the cost for a lane sponsor and whatnot. So we're really trying to tackle the fundraising aspect with more businesses, and then we're going into the schools this year, and we're going to ask each building to at least promote one team that will be paid for to get more kids participating, since it's an NYA event. But there's over 100 referrals every year that goes through Lisa Shields and the counseling office there, so it is a meaningful organization. But you know, and we talk about NYA, which was at the breakfast that Friday. Our treasurer was, or secretary was sworn in, who is Andrea Smith. Andrea Smith's married to Jason Smith, who is the executive director for the Novi Educational Foundation. And again, I'm just reminded that we have some really awesome community members that volunteer their time that help all these things thrive. So just publicly want to recognize Andrea and Jason for all they do for our community.
And Tom, to your point on the synergy part, at Fordson, we intentionally invited Jason Smith there, the head of the NEF, but then we invited Dearborn Community Schools, head of their group. We had our head of the Chamber of Commerce and Dearborn's head of Chamber of Commerce there as well. In just building those synergies and spinning those pieces, you know, out of that 16K that went in, I would love to see if we could find a breakdown of how much of that came from after school and the swarm that comes from the high school over there. When I talked to one of the people working there, they said the line is 35, 40 kids deep at about 220, so don't come get my 4 shots of espresso then, be earlier. But, you know, when we include as many people as possible in these things, this is exactly what happens, right? And I failed to announce that I am a board member on the Novi Community Coalition, and that's led by Debbie Wirtz, and they've kind of come on the scene in the past 2 or 3 years or so. But Debbie's amazing, and she comes to our parent mental health meetings. We just earned, and I say we just because my name was on it, not because I did a lot of work on it, but $125,000 a year for the next 5 years, each year, $625K total federal grant on helping support our kids around substance abuse. And the link that I'm going to push really hard on is connecting that to trauma, and how we use that as an engine to help educate our staff, our parents, and our students around the impacts of trauma and what that means for our kids and substance abuse and mental health and mental illness, and how that leads to substance abuse. And really that would have never happened, or that relationship would have never happened if we didn't continually try to bring as many people in from the community as possible, as many things, because you just don't know who you're going to bump into, right? Or what relationship could lead to $125K a year for 5 years.
Fantastic. Just good news abounds. Mrs. Roden?
I'm actually going to feed off RJ a little there. I went last night to Oakland Schools. They had a vaping and substance abuse program. And the first part they started out with was showing trauma. And you know, I mean, it was like 50 some odd % of our kids, you know, the trauma. And then how that leads to substance abuse, you know, vaping, marijuana use. And so it's like they're saying, they kept saying is what is predictable is preventable. So if we know, you know, that these kids have trauma, then we know that they're, you know, more likely to abuse alcohol, drugs, any of those. And so, again, back to the what is predictable is preventable. Some of the statistics that just really I was flabbergasted by is, you know, I think they do 5th, 7th, and 11th grade, or some there. And 5th grade, the percentage of kids that had tried synthetic marijuana was like the same as 11th graders. So, I mean, that was just like, oh my gosh. And then the other thing we found, our group at our table found that we really thought was probably incorrect data, or was only 36% of the 11th graders admitted to using prescription drugs that they were not prescribed. We kind of felt that it should be higher, and that maybe kids did not want to admit to it because, you know, it's wrong. So we were a little shocked by that, but the new study comes out this year, the MyFi, is it? Or?
Yep.
So we will see, that's a new survey, so we'll get more data there. And part of this they also talked about, and I'm going to go on past the substance abuse, was the LEO. Are you familiar with that? The literary assistance that I guess we've signed up for, and we're going to get some assistance with our third grade literacy.
Yep. They'll be providing literacy support through the county for it.
So that is, I think, awesome. And then one of the other things they talked about was, and this is legislative, that they're going to put a cap on superintendent's pay. They're trying to.
That's what they're trying to do.
50K is enough.
So, I would suggest, I think it's Maddox that is, Representative Maddox that is going, like, leading this charge. So we might want to send them a little message saying, we don't like that. And then the other thing is we had a curriculum meeting, and it kind of tied into this going, the substance abuse, but the health. Our health book and our health curriculum is kind of outdated. And so we will be bringing stuff to the board once we get it to where it's, I don't know, swallowable or
digestible.
There you go. Thank you. Palatable, digestible. I know that wasn't a good word to use, but so we will bring that because there are some things that we don't even have in our curriculum that really needs to be addressed to help our students with mental health. So I think that's it. And I really enjoyed the Oakland schools. The next one is in Clarkston. It's at their tech center. So, that would probably have to leave here at like 3 o'clock to get there. So, and if anybody wants to know, Maple and Middle Belt, the intersection is closed. So you cannot get through there.
All right. Well, hopefully it'll be over by then, if there's no snow. Lastly, I just want to say I love that you started with gratitude because Thanksgiving is coming up, and I am very thankful for each one of you for the part that you play on this board, and Marianne for taking the time to go to that, and Danielle, and just taking the time to participate in the things that really do add value, both to our discussion and to this board and ultimately to the district. I do want to say that the DC trip this year, having gone, I think this is my 7th year, I was trying to look at my swag to say, okay, because you get a chaperone shirt every year. I think this was my 7th year, and I think every year, at least in my opinion, the behavior of our kids just gets that much better. And I don't know if that's the leader in me at the elementary levels trickling up. I don't know if it's just a combination of many things, but I will say that I am just very impressed with the kids on my bus were so engaged this year that they were asking fantastic questions and just constantly focused on what they were learning, which was just a fantastic thing to see. I invited them all to come see me at the board. I don't know if any of them will ever show up, but they were really interested kids, interesting, and I felt very blessed to be able to take part in that. So I want to thank my husband because he took care of the dog, so I can shout out to him as well. So
that dog is tough.
Yeah, I know. Anyways, really thankful for all of you. Thank you to our administration too, and really the community support for the work that we're doing through the approval of the bond is just huge. So, and thankful to those that also call things to our attention that need addressed, because we do need those people to bring things to light that maybe we haven't considered. So thank you to those people as well. So on that note, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Moved by Mrs. Renner, supported by Mrs. Wood. All those in favor, please say aye. All right. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, you guys.